Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am super thrilled to have a Texas girl, having lived in Houston for 8 years and having a lot of ties there still. I think once you're in Texas, it never leaves you, even if you leave the state. But this woman is a powerhouse in PR, has so many accolades, and has a lot to share about her model, being part of an editor for a magazine, and all the other twists and turns that you've had. So Aquila Mendez Valdez, thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And I also love the background. It's so well,
Yep. Thank you. Shout out to reusable wallpaper, like the peel and stick.
Oh, yes. I'm a big fan of that. You always knew you wanted to be a publicist. I mean, you majored in PR, went to grad school. How did that work out?
Yeah, so in high school, really, from when I was really young, I loved reading first, then I loved writing, I loved telling stories. I thought I wanted to be a journalist. And so when I went to college, I went to WKU, Western Kentucky, and I was recruited there for volleyball. And one of the biggest selling points was we have this incredible journalism program. And I said, that's amazing. I will totally be the next Christiana Amanpour. I'm going to be a foreign correspondent. I'm going to be in war-torn countries. And I got a couple semesters into journalism school and started really feeling like, ooh, this is not going to be a career where I can have flexibility or make a decent income within the first 10 to 15 years. So I got, pulled away into the PR side pretty quickly and switched my major and really have never looked back.
Amazing. What was it about PR that you really loved?
It just felt like the best of both worlds. Like I could still tell stories and write and learn. I was very curious. I think that's what I loved about journalism, was that I could just dig in and be curious about a wide range of topics all the time, every day. And I still get to do that. Like that's the best part of PR, is that I do get to find out and talk to amazing people all the time. And our clients do such interesting things in such varied industries that I feel like I'm still kind of scratching that journalist itch every so often.
Well, I'd love to talk about that. What kind of clients do you work with? Are they all based in Texas? Are they national as well?
Yeah, we have certainly our core, clientele is here in Texas. We're based in San Antonio, but we have clients in Houston, Dallas. We have a location in Austin. So we're in kind of all the major cities in Texas, but then we also have some clients outside of the great state of Texas. As you mentioned, it definitely reels you in and makes you feel pretty passionate about it. And then we're very fortunate as well to have some international work that's come our way too. So as far as industry, we're agnostic. We have clients all over the board. It's really just kind of, are they a good fit for us? Can we feel like we are able to make an impact for them? And then we're excited to take them on.
Yeah. I think that's really fascinating, because there are a lot of people who niche down into one specific industry or a couple of specific industries. And then there are others, right? Who you say, they just have to be a good fit for me, the way I do things, the way I operate business, my values, and understand that PR, it's the same, right? You do a lot of the same things no matter who your client is.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest lesson for me was I saw a lot of my friends who had niched down into food and beverage during COVID just get decimated and, have their whole client base go out the window within, weeks. And we felt really fortunate during COVID that we had some clients that were thriving. We absolutely had some clients that took a major hit, and that impacted our revenue as well. But the fact that we hadn't niched down into a particular industry really saved us. So yeah, I would say, one common thread that we do end up having a lot is we work with a lot of female founders, but they're just badasses at what they do in whatever industry they're in. That's the commonality.
Yeah, I love that. Always here for that. I feel like I've had a lot of those conversations today with women who are doing really interesting things and innovating, and they just bring so much joy to me to have those conversations, right?
Absolutely. Women very rarely go into a field to be average. Like we always kick butt. We take names. We're like the best at what we do and we like revolutionize whatever, field we go into. So I just think that is so much fun to tell those stories for sure.
And you are doing this. I mean, you're not just saying these words, but you actually are doing this. You are 40 under 40. You have your own marketing agency. You did work at an agency for a little bit. And then I'd love to hear about the transition to deciding that, this is fine, but this ain't it. I need to go do my own thing.
Yeah, yeah. So you're totally right. I spent about 4 years-ish working for another agency. I started as an intern. I was one of their very first official like hires, really kind of grew up with them as an agency and saw, they were very, very open and transparent with us about how they were growing the business. And that was a huge learning opportunity for me, for them to be that, open and honest with us. And it wasn't until I was pregnant with my second daughter, I think, that I started to get that itch. Starting your own business while you're pregnant is an interesting choice for sure. But yeah, I had really started to feel that itch of like, okay, if I am going to be, doing this, if I'm going to really feel passionate about my career, I would love for it to be on my own terms with my own schedule, my own clients. And then I feel like I can go home to my babies and feel really proud and excited, and it definitely has been a decision that has paid off.
Well, and that's all been in your home city, right? You went away for university, you went to grad school, but did you always know you're going to move back to San Antonio?
I wish I could claim San Antonio as my hometown. I actually grew up in Indiana.
Okay.
So absolutely not similar to Texas at all. But my husband is born and raised from San Antonio. So now he jokes that I know the city better than he does and, see people out and about all the time. And that's just my personality. I love like connecting and building relationships. But yeah, we basically we had met in college, dated all throughout. And then when we were going to be getting married, it was kind of, okay, whose family do we live closer to? And San Antonio had already stolen my heart at that point. It was an easy decision. I just absolutely love it. I love, how wonderful it is to raise a family here. Houston's nice too. I'm not going to, hate on Houston, but San Antonio is pretty special.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Sorry I got that wrong. I totally thought
No,
you seem very Texas. So
that's a compliment. That's a huge compliment.
So yeah, you had your second daughter or your second child. You decided to go off on your own, but you have multiple businesses. And let's backtrack a little bit because you also were the fashion and beauty editor for magazines. So you got to kind of live out your dream of being a journalist.
I did, yeah. So San Antonio Woman is a local publication here, obviously. And, they were connected to me, a few years ago. It was back when my client roster was, small enough that I felt like, oh, I could also do this. This would be a really fun thing to experience. And it was such a good opportunity to learn about truly what do journalists go through to kind of put together layouts and pull together products and samples and everything that we needed. And yeah, definitely like, checked a bucket list item off to feel like I could actually play that role. But it was incredibly fun, incredibly rewarding. And we're still like, even this past week, we were working with them on a feature for a client. So it's been fun to kind of flip back to the other side of it now.
Nice. But in the meantime, you're also running your firm. You also have an investment company for real estate, right? And then now you've moved into a whole new field also of franchising.
Yeah, that all sounds very overwhelming when you list it all out like that, for sure. But no, my husband, played professional basketball internationally for many, many years. And so investing in real estate was something that we wanted to do, to be smart while he was playing. We knew that was not something that was going to last forever. So that's really his baby. I come in and help out, as he needs me, but he does a great job of vetting those opportunities and building that for us. And then the franchising opportunity really, again, kind of came about because of COVID. I was, kind of had a little bit of extra time on my hands to think about, scaling and the agency and how do we start with our model of being very hands-on, very high touch relationship with our clients. How do we do that if a client is not in our market in San Antonio? And so that sort of led me down the road of, well, what if we had, someone who owned the other markets and, that's their baby. They know the local market. They know the local clientele. And there were so many stories coming out about women leaving the workforce because
Oh,
of COVID, because of all the demands on, childcare. And there's just no way that I can do all of this. Something's got to give. And unfortunately, women's careers were taking the hit. And it felt like if I could offer an opportunity to give more women a chance to own their own entity, their own business, it's theirs 100%, but give them that structure and that framework behind it so it didn't feel as risky, it didn't feel as scary. It was totally a win-win for us to scale in a way that made sense.
what was the transition like when you started your own business and agency and having to learn all of the business side of things? Because I think that's something that we often do something because we're really passionate about our industry, right? But then sometimes it can be easy to forget, oh, this actually is a business and we have to manage all of these other things that we might not be as fun for us. And
Yeah.
then moving into figuring out how to create franchises and how to create that model.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a big believer in asking for help when you need it, for sure. And so there were franchising side, there were a lot of people that I reached out to talk to that knew way more about it than I did and could point me in the direction of resources and, places that I could go to ask all the questions and figure out if it really was right for us.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the first part of your question, I am 100%, not a numbers person. I don't like the finance. I don't like the tax. Like, I don't enjoy any of that. But I think as you're in business longer and longer, you start to realize that if something feels intimidating and feels like it's way over your head, if you just jump in and tackle it, all of a sudden you realize, like, oh, okay, I can do this. Like, it's going to be all right. Like, I think you feel like that at every stage of business where you're like, no, no, this is my max. I can't quite grow in this next phase. And then you figure it out. You just realize that everybody's learning and figuring it out as they go. And you're more than capable of doing that as well.
Yeah. And I imagine that for a lot of your clients, it's really helpful that you also have this background of being a badass woman entrepreneur, knowing the ins and outs, right, of how everything they have to put into their business and pour into the business every day, instead of just not to belittle this, but just being an agent that, in an agency and being a publicist in an agency who doesn't understand that whole perspective and pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel like, especially working with some of our female founder clients, they almost rely upon us just as much as like a cheerleader for them and like a therapist and, shoulder to cry on. And I feel like that role in PR and marketing is not one that I expected, but it is one that I really treasure because it feels like they rely on us for, encouraging them through the tough times, telling them like, yes, you should absolutely go after this opportunity. You are 100% deserving and worthy of this. And it fills my cup so much to empower them to see themselves that way and is just super rewarding.
Yeah. Amazing. Do you have a favorite story or two about a client who, whatever stage they found you in or that you found them in, right? Whether it's early stages or they'd worked with other people and you're able to help them shift market perception and the way they felt about their business and PR, and what a great way it was to help them out.
Yeah. Boy, the first one that comes to mind is a woman named Julie. She's a dear, dear friend of ours. And she came to us wanting to start a blog about her son who had passed from a really rare mitochondrial disease. And she wanted to be a resource for caregivers. And she wanted to kind of put herself out there as, I can be this resource. I can be this, place on the internet where you can come and feel like it's a safe place to talk about what you're going through. And in the beginning of working with Julie, she was very timid and tentative as far as, well, I don't know if I want to film this video. I don't know if I want to go on this podcast. I don't know if I want to, put myself out there in this way and that way. And it was so much fun to see her blossom over the, next few years of working together. And we still, obviously are in touch to this day and, work with her. And it just was so wonderfully beautiful to see her journey of going from, I don't know, to then she would be texting us and saying, hey, I just saw this opportunity. Why don't we do a video about this? Why don't we do this? And hey, put me up. Like, what about this award? What about this opportunity? And it was just wonderful to see her build that confidence over the years and really believe in herself. We didn't need to tell her that. She needed to just decide like 100% I can go after that.
Amazing. I love that story. And what do you look for because you do work with a wide swath of clients, are there certain things that you look for in a client and certain questions on the other side that people should ask when they're looking for the right firm to work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, one of the big things that we have started to be more deliberate about asking is in that prospect, kind of discovery process, we really need to understand, what does success mean to you? And on the flip side of that, if you tell us, okay, success means more leads or success means more, XYZ, are you also willing to do the work on your side to give us what we need to be successful? So, sometimes it's like, we need more leads, we need more leads. And then it's, okay, well, great. Can we have access to all of this, sometimes very, confidential information about your sales or your process, or your tracking your, CRM system? If you're uncomfortable or nervous about letting us have that much insight into your business, then it's really difficult for us to know whether or not we're being successful. So I think we've started to be a little bit more firm in our stance about that, and just being clear about, here's what we would need from you in order to make that happen. And then I think in terms of like asking, what should prospects ask of an agency? I think it's really important to understand, what is their communication style like? Is it okay if I'm emailing you? Like, is there a way that you prefer to communicate? Is it, hey, you're never going to have access to my private cell phone, or, you can email me on the weekend, but I'm never going to respond until Monday, and just make sure that if that's going to bother you, or if you're going to feel, entitled to somebody's time at that, extreme of a level, maybe it's okay to say like, hey, we're not the best fit for you. But getting that out of the way up front is so much easier than discovering it, 30 days in.
Yeah, 100%. I always find that interesting. Or when I've asked people in the past, like, have you worked with a firm before? Did it work? What did you like or not like about it? It's often, I've now realized, like, oh, there are a lot of red flags to those answers that I might not have looked at as red flags. But
Yeah.
hindsight now, I realize, yeah, that might not be the right fit for me depending on what their answer is. So,
Yep. Yeah, and you learn to trust your gut more too. Sometimes it's not an actual obvious answer, but it's just like the flow of conversation, or just something about like the way that we're connecting is off. And anytime I have ignored that voice and still decided like, no, let's go ahead, let's try it, it's always been, a disaster. It's always been frustrating and not an ideal experience.
I want to ask you a little bit more about the franchise model, because I think I understand McDonald's or a big corporation, and they have the manuals and you have to use the logo in a certain way. And obviously, I think some of that is probably true for a PR firm that's franchising as well. But do you provide them with your favorite systems, your templates, this database, and here's the way we pitch, and like help really train them in depth about all facets of being an agency?
Yeah, so I think we definitely learned early on that this is not a model where we could take any Joe Schmo off the streets and accept them as a franchisee. Like, there's a very specific person that we're looking for to be a franchisee for us. And ideally, they've got a little bit of a background in PR, a little bit of background in marketing, or at a minimum sales, and they kind of understand that game. But yes, we give them all the tools, all the resources, all the training. There's a lot of shared software kind of, expense that we're helping share that burden and share that load for them, so that it's not as heavy of an overhead, which is great. And then my goal as well was that, for example, here in San Antonio, if you're a local marketing firm, you absolutely know Fiesta's coming up. We've got to make sure we've got our Fiesta medals. Like, if you're listening to this and you're from like North Carolina, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you're in San Antonio, and every market I feel like has that thing that the local agencies get, and they have an advantage over somebody trying to come from out of market to help a local small business. So I wanted to make sure that, yes, you've got the tools and templates that you need to succeed, but you are the local market expert. I want you to be able to help the clients have that best of both worlds scenario, where they're getting a larger framework, but it's catered to your market. And then as we grow, I would love for our network to be a referral source. And, it's constantly passing that business back and forth of, hey, I know somebody in your market who needs this, and somebody in my market who needs that. And it's kind of an all boats rise situation.
Yeah. That sounds really beautiful. And you have one franchise right now. Are there any other lessons that you learned in the process of creating franchises and knowing? Because you said there are definitely people that are not ideal people to franchise.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. Any journey is fraught with way more, lessons learned and failures than there are like the glorious successes. So for sure, when we started out with the franchise, we went down the traditional route of advertising and marketing, and we went to the franchise expos and we had some great conversations. There were people that gave us a lot of great feedback, but nobody was really hitting the mark of like, oh yeah, this is it. This is our person. So we really had to like shift and pivot. And what we did was we ended up hiring a headhunter to specifically look for in the Austin market. Here is the persona, the profile that we want to go after. And let's just put our eggs in this basket instead of trying to just spray and pray and hope that our perfect candidate kind of lands in our lap. And that was how we found our franchisee. So I think it's okay to admit when something's not working and just completely go in a new direction, because it's just not worth it to keep banging your head against a wall if you're not seeing the results that you want.
And I'm going to ask a question that it seems very stereotypical to ask a mom, but I will say a lot of men who are fathers on my podcast, we also talk about these issues of being a parent and being an entrepreneur and managing that, right? Because sometimes we have to work long hours, but then we also have to make sure that we have time to pick up our kids from school or drop them off at school or do their activities. So how has that shifted in the course of your business since you went from 0 to 1 to 2 children?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess two-part answer. Number one, I just gave a talk a couple weeks ago about the lessons that I learned from my dad, who is a farmer. He still farms to this day, has a family farm in Indiana. And one of the lessons that I talked about in this talk was that we always knew at like harvest time or planting time, like dad's just going to be off the radar. He's going to be super busy. He loves us. He's there for us if we need him, but like he's got to prioritize work right now. And I felt like I was able to start slowly kind of implementing that philosophy in my business as I kind of grew and got my legs under me, that sometimes I need my family to understand like this is a busy season with work. And sometimes I need my team and my agency to understand like, hey, I'm out of pocket. My family needs me. I've got to be able to come over here and handle what I've got going on right now with them. So I think being able to kind of give yourself some grace in that space where you're going to have times where work comes first, you're going to have times where family comes first, and neither is better or worse. It's okay to be, a person who's getting pulled in a lot of different directions. And then I think kind of secondary answer to that question is that I mentioned earlier with the franchise, I was more than happy to like ask for help. And I have definitely started to flex that muscle of like, I am happy to ask for help in motherhood when I need it. Like I have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful father-in-law who helps me a ton with my girls. And my husband helps a ton. My, girlfriends that have kids too, like they're used to me texting them like, hey, super last minute, but can, my daughter walk home with yours after school and I'll grab her in 30 minutes and I've got a meeting running over. Like I have no shame in my game to ask for help at that level because there's just literally no way that I make it happen otherwise. It's just not feasible.
Yeah, but that's a high level of transparency and really being ethical, right?
Sure.
Because you're being honest with what you can do or not do at any one time. And we can't help it sometimes if that client call goes over and we can't tell them, hey, I have to go pick up my kid or make sure they're walking home from school. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially the mom friends that also get it and ask for the same in return. Like, please, like if I can help you, when you've got something going on or you've got an early coffee meeting, so I'll make sure the kids get to school. Like if it's that sort of very, two-way street, then nobody has to feel guilty. Nobody has to feel like, you're taking advantage of somebody. It's just, I know I've got you, you've got me, and we're going to get through this together because it's a little bit insane.
Yeah. What is a piece of advice that you'd give to an entrepreneur like yourself, somebody who has a family, who wants to get out of the corporate mold, go off on their own and do their own thing?
I feel like when I talk to women who are in the corporate world, I feel like a lot of times they are more nervous about the like logistical side of it. Like, what am I going to do for healthcare? What am I going to do for this? What am I going to do for that? And I always just kind of want to like give them a hug and be like, no, 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 like you can totally figure that out. Like there are so many resources, there's so many like flexible options for those types of things. Not to say that it's easy or cheap or as convenient as just your employer like handing you all of that, on a plate, but don't let that deter you from getting started and giving it a go, because there's absolutely ways to like work around that and find a solution. And if you really have that like burning desire to do something or start something, there's a reason for that. So ignoring it is never going to be something that you feel good about 5, 10, 15 years from now.
Yeah. When you're working with your clients, what are some other big wins that you find, or what are some ways that you direct them? Because I know like a lot of times when I've worked with smaller clients who are just starting out, are not known names, I'd use the analogy of like the crawl, walk, run, right? So we're going to get you a little press to get you comfortable speaking and telling your story, and then we'll start building up from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, I mean, I feel like with small businesses in particular, and I probably need to work on this or be better about conveying this, but we really try to help them understand like you have to be patient, that things are not going to happen overnight and is absolutely going to be a battle, especially if we're starting with you from like day one, we need you to be prepared for like a few years of like, we're battling, we're getting through this, we're figuring it out. So any business plan, anything that you've thought like, no, 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 here's what I've got all figured out, plan on it taking like twice as long and being twice as hard. And don't feel like it's because your PR and marketing team is failing. It's just, we've got to try to do what we can with the budget that we have. And it's going to take time. But if you can fill us in on what the status is on your business and how you're feeling, what's going on, how can we pivot? We want you to feel like we're that level of a team with you, instead of, well, I hope Aquila and her team succeed over there on their own, and I'll just keep freaking out over here. Like, loop us into that so we can be a better resource for you.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that's one thing that doesn't matter if you're marketing, PR, or other businesses in this creative realm, people expect things to happen really fast. I give the same advice to people who are starting podcasts. And they're like, how soon can I monetize? How do I do this? I'm like, you haven't even put an episode out yet. So let's start there. And, people need to see consistency. So it's going to be a haul. You can do it, but you have to work at it. And you have to show that you're not going to go away tomorrow.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. Consistency goes so far. It's like the hardest thing to make sure that you actually do and stick with, but it will be the like actual indicator of success for sure.
Yeah. And next I want to turn to trends. What are some of the trends? I know AI, of course, is something people talk about. A lot of people are still on the fence about podcasts, but what trends are you seeing in your different markets that you're working in and in the PR industry as a whole?
Yeah, a really great question. I feel like we have been talking with a lot of prospects or clients that are starting to understand the value of like their executive team having a brand and having a presence, and whether that's on LinkedIn or a different platform or having owned content. Like, to me, owned content is kind of having like a revival where people are so fed up with trying to grow on Facebook or Instagram or wherever that they're like, just let's go a whole different way. And I'm kind of here for it. Like, I really kind of like getting back to the roots of people want to feel connected to you. They want to feel like they know what's going on. And maybe your personal LinkedIn is a great way to build that true trust and awareness of the connections that you have. They want to support you and know how they can help your brand. And seeing something from you directly is so much more potent than, oh, they posted on the company Instagram. So yeah, I love that trend for sure. And, that's just anecdotally what we're seeing, I guess, on our small scale here. But yeah, I think AI is going to continue to revolutionize things. I love it. I think it's phenomenal. It's made our lives a lot easier and sped up a lot of our processes. I'm sure that there will be some doomsday kind of scary things to come out, but overall, it seems to be a net positive.
Nice. Yeah. And that's because you're realizing it's a tool, not a replacement of everything that you do, all of your workflows.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Thank God they still need a human to direct it a little bit. So,
But,
well, we're not quite replaced yet.
right. And I was just showing somebody a tool that helps match pitches for podcasts, and it's AI driven, but you still have to go in and make sure that the templates say the correct information, that the bio is exactly what you want it to be. Where it really helps is the fact that it'll go through and knows which podcasts are still active and which ones are actually taking guests. So you don't have to do that legwork. But that's the kind of tool, like, I'm like, yeah, I'm here for that, where it's going to revolutionize how we can pitch one to one, make it look one to one, but also have very curated lists instead of one of us or a team member having to go through and like figure that
Yeah.
out for themselves, because it's not always easy.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a huge advantage for the workforce to be able to say, okay, I don't need to hire somebody to do this low level data research, investigation side of things. I can now hire you to do higher level stuff because that part's already done, taken care of. Like, let's already move you up a couple notches in the ladder. So hopefully that's encouraging for, graduates too that are kind of starting to launch into this world too.
Yeah. And one more question, well, maybe second to last, is I know a lot of people either don't think they need PR, right? They think they can just build something and people will find them when they don't need the PR and marketing side, or people think they need PR before they're ready to start. So do you think there's a magic moment in a business life cycle when they should start thinking about PR and marketing as part of their overall strategy?
Oh boy. I don't know if there's a magic moment as much as if you truly understand the roadmap of your business and where you're headed. I think understanding, first of all, what PR will do for your business, and then at what stage will you actually value that? If it's too early, it's like, well, yeah, that's great, but that's not what we need right now. And then if it's too late, it's like, well, we should have already had this. We should have already been in these publications. And you're almost like taking it for granted. So I feel like maybe that's the happy medium, is like that intersection of like, we can afford it, we get it, we know what it'll do for us. And it's the moment when we've got something coming, or we've got something in the pipeline, or we're about to go for our next round of investors. And so we're kind of on the cusp of like, if more people know about us, it's going to help move the needle towards this goal faster. So I don't know if that makes sense. That's definitely something we have to walk through a lot, because we'll have people come to us at one point and it's like, okay, but what's the actual like newsworthy angle here? What are we actually pitching you for? I know that you feel like, absolute best, greatest, at your job, and that's wonderful, but you got to help us make sure that we're going to be able to be successful here. So sometimes that's some like interesting conversations to navigate, but I think if you're willing to take a PR person's true, honest feedback, that it can help you make sure that, yes, it's the right time. Yes, it's a good, good move for us to go ahead and start this journey.
Yeah. I love that answer. So thank you. And Aquila, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, family motto, just some words that help you like stay focused and enthusiastic every day?
Boy. So as a very like type A, anxious, over like worrier, thinker, classic, my favorite Bible verse talks about, do not be anxious or, consumed by this world, for I have overcome this world. Mm-hmm. And as a person of faith, I think it gives me a lot of peace, and I can take a deep breath when I realize that like I don't have to have it all figured out. Like, I believe in a God who has already figured it out and been there, done that, and I can leave it with him to sort it all out, versus me being the one who has to have all of the answers today.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I know that we have a complimentary social media brand audit with you. So I'm going to link your calendar and the code in the show notes. But is there any last word that you want to leave our audience with today?
No, I mean, I definitely would be happy to connect with anybody if reach out on LinkedIn or anything. If I can, help with anything that you guys have going on, I'm always excited to connect and chat with people, whether you're in the PR industry or not, or anything. I always just love being able to build relationships, and you never know where that'll lead. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. This is really fun. I love hearing a fresh perspective from the PR world with all the different things that you've done, where you're taking your agency with a franchise model. Just wish you so much success with that. And I'll be watching what you do next.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you to everybody who is watching or listening to this episode. I'll be back again in a couple days with another amazing person to share their story, their journey, and give you some actionable advice. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.